Hi, I am going to talk a little bit about how we can support children's emotional well-being. I'm going to give you five strategies that you can use with children of different ages. These are approaches that um, are relevant for any situation, anytime you're concerned about how your child may be feeling. But obviously, at the moment, it's particularly relevant given that we're back in lockdown again. And although worries and stress of living through a pandemic are very much still part of children's lives, unfortunately. So, my first suggestion is to do something called listen through looking. Um, Before we can support children's emotional well-being, we need to be able to understand what they're going through, how they're making sense of their experiences, how they're interpreting their interactions with others, and what's happening in their lives. Um, but it's not always easy for children to tell adults what's going on for them, partly because they may not really understand their own feelings, and it may be hard for them to make sense of their emotions in response to situations, but also because they may not have the language skills to be able to explain what's going on for them. So, in order to listen through looking, what we're doing is we are looking at a child's body language, their facial expressions, and we're looking at what that is communicating to us about how they may be feeling at a given time. And sometimes it's quite obvious how a child is feeling based on how they respond in a situation in that moment. If they're feeling very angry or very excited, it can be quite obvious. But other times it's a bit more subtle. Sometimes it can be about lack of movement or lack of expression on the face that might give us an indication that something's bothering a child. So, if we use our eyes and interpret a child's body language and facial expressions as their way of communicating what they're feeling, that gives us a starting point to build on, to be able to start to either talk to them or use different approaches that I'm going to talk about in a minute, to open up that dialogue and let them know that you are concerned, or that you are there if they want to explore or discuss or ask for help about something. My second suggestion for you this evening is to think about the power of play. So we're thinking more about younger children now, but obviously any child who still enjoys playing, certainly throughout primary and to some extent secondary school children as well, they enjoy playing and use that as an opportunity to engage with them and support them to recognize and understand emotions and be able to label them as well. So what we're trying to do here is support children to become familiar with different types of emotions, and to be able to link particular vocabulary to the way we feel in different situations, both in terms of how we feel and also the feelings that we see and experience in others. So what you can do is join your child in whatever they're choosing to play with. It might be a construction activity, it might be role play, maybe they're just doing some arts and crafts. And think about the storyline that is being created through that play, and start to introduce the language of emotions by commenting on what you see the child doing, but also perhaps if it is more of a role play activity, maybe introducing a character yourself. Maybe it's a particular small world figure, or maybe you're dressed up and you're acting out a fun story, and you can have your character demonstrate how they're feeling through what they say, what they do. And what you're trying to do is use lots and lots of language to really emphasize the different feelings that you're seeing your child show through their character's play, or through the pictures they're drawing, or even the if they're building machines or vehicles and then they're engaging in an adventure or a battle in space perhaps, you can still bring the language of emotions into that play. And if your child does have difficulty with speech and language, or you're working with children who have special educational needs, then it's really important that we support the language that we're using with visual cues. So having pictures of faces, symbols, the words written out, that can help to reinforce those words that you are saying. I'd like to think a little bit about older children now. So if we're thinking maybe about teenagers and how we can support their emotional well-being at this time, my tip for you is to think about how you can stay connected with them through methods that are meaningful to them, what's important in their lives at the moment. So try to think about maybe how you can use social media to engage and support your child. So maybe think about how you can give a WhatsApp through something like WhatsApp. What you're trying to do is just remind your child that you're there, that it's okay for them to feel whatever they feel, and that you can give that reassurance that if they need you for anything, or if they want to come to you to share anything that's bothering them, that they can. But the key here is to not expect a huge response, because teenagers are more likely to turn to their friends for social support, and it's one of the reasons they're going to find being in lockdown particularly difficult. And actually, social media is a bit of a lifeline in some respects. They can stay connected with their friends, but they are less likely to turn to as an adult, and that's okay. But it's still important that they have that reassurance that you're there if they need you, but that there's no pressure as well. The other thing I would encourage you to do is to share organisations that offer support to children, such as Childline or Young Minds. Again, using social media, text or email, or just send a link to your child just so they've got it, so they're aware, and you don't have to even ask a response. Just want you to know that this is here. If there's something that you want help with, or something that you just want to have a space to talk to somebody, and you don't feel comfortable talking to the adults in your life, maybe you're embarrassed to talk to your friends, these are safe places that you can go and get advice and support for free. So moving on now, we've talked about the importance of helping children to recognise and identify emotions, and that they need a safe space to explore and express and stay connected to the people in their lives. But as adults, it can often be really tempting to want to get in there and try to fix a child's problems, particularly if we're really worried about what's going on for them, or maybe we become aware that they're feeling anxious about something, or we're seeing they're feeling a bit low. It's a natural feeling to want to help, and particularly if it's your own children, and if there are children that you're working with, obviously, for example, if you're in education, we know that if a child is struggling emotionally, then they're going to find it harder to access their learning. So it's only natural that we want to try to find ways to support children, but we must resist that temptation to fix a problem, because if we move too quickly in trying to get to a resolution, actually it can have the opposite effect and become unhelpful. If you think about a time maybe as an adult that you've wanted to offload to someone, you've wanted to talk through something, and actually what you really want is someone just to listen, someone just to be there to hear you out, so you've got a space to offload, someone to acknowledge that things are tough for you, and just to let you know that you're there, they're there for you. If the person you're talking to suddenly tries to come up with lots of ideas of ways that you can be helped, and you haven't actually asked specifically, what can I do? What can help me? What can I do differently? You can feel a bit pressured, or a bit like maybe the person doesn't really want to hear you out. They just kind of want to solve the problem and move on. And it's very much the same for children and young people. What we need to try to do is hold their hurt, which can be challenging, particularly if it's a child that we're close to. It can be hurtful for us as well if we are seeing and hearing and experiencing the painful feelings that they're going through. But what's going to help that child the most is for you to acknowledge their feelings. So literally say to them, I can see you are feeling. It seems like you might be feeling. I can hear you're telling me this. Just let them know that you have heard what they are saying, whether it makes sense to you, whether you agree with it. Assuming what they're telling you isn't something that's putting them in immediate danger. Really, they just need you to let them know that you have heard them, and then just give that reassurance. I'm here. If it's your child, you might want to give them a cuddle. If it's a member of staff, you might want to reassure them that you're going to bear in mind what they've said, and you are there if ever they need to ask any questions or they want any help with anything. And the other thing to consider is that it's okay to just be with a child in silence. You can still support them in silence. It can seem quite daunting, sort of just sitting there and not saying anything. But so long as the child knows you're just there for them, you're there because they're struggling emotionally, and you want to be there for them to lean on and to offer support, you don't actually have to say anything. It can be quite powerful just sitting in silence together, and with the child knowing that you have listened, you have observed, you've recognised and acknowledged what they're going through. And then my final tip is I wanted to give something a bit more practical, because everything is chaotic at the moment. We're all struggling. We're all trying to balance work and supporting our children with their learning, and managing everybody's well-being, and maybe we're worrying about people we care about who are not well. There's a lot going on. And when life is a bit chaotic, what can give comfort is routine and consistency. So for your children at home, if your routine is different and is changed, that's okay. Certainly your children's routine will be different. Many children are learning at home again. If they are still going into school, it's going to feel very different again. So it's okay for routines to be different, but try to establish some sort of sense of daily routine, daily normality if you can. Even if there's going to be different people looking after your children, try to find some key points in the day where similar things are happening so that they can have that sense of security that is just evading many of us at the moment. Because that routine is really reassuring for children. Again, particularly children who are neurodiverse and really, really struggle with any kind of change. The more familiarity, the more consistency and routine that you can bring into their daily lives, the better. Thank you for listening. I hope this has been helpful. Stay safe, everybody, and hopefully in the very near future, we'll be out and about and enjoying the sunshine again soon.